Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Stuck in the Middle podcast.
Yes, sir.
I'm Reflex, one of your hosts.
I'm AK,
Man.
the other host.
Yo, it's the last episode of the year, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man.
Before next week's episode, which is... We're not going to reveal that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But before anything, I want to let you guys know this episode is brought to you in partnership with Perfect Office Solutions, providing private office space for entrepreneurs, freelancers, and business owners in the DMV area, right here in Maryland also. Use promotion code SITM Podcast. SITM Podcast, you can get 10% off your lease. Tell them we sent you. There's plenty of reasons why you should choose Perfect Office Solutions, but I'm going to just give you one. Secure access. Limited access to all your events, and it's secure. So just hit up Perfect Office Solutions on Twitter, every platform, and let them know we sent you. SITM Podcast is the promotion code. Get 10% on your lease. Fam.
Yes, sir.
You know,
Talk
like,
to me.
it's two things that people, you know what I'm saying, end of the year, start of the year, everybody want to do.
Finances and health.
Finances and health.
Yes, sir.
That's why I'm excited about this episode today. Like, you got any goals for next year as far as health-wise? Or
Hell, man. See, all I know is this, right?
Mhm.
I'm not going to drag 2017 into 2018. That's all I know. So I got to set bigger, better goals. I haven't thought about them yet, but I will.
You know that meme where it's the girl and she's like got a backpack and she's stepping into like the next year and then like it's
Yeah.
that's what that's what
Shake it
I
out.
said.
Shake it out.
No, but listen though, I'm excited about this guest that we have in the building today. I've been looking forward
Yeah.
to this. I'm gonna let you guys know who she is.
Before you even do,
Yes, sir.
You know, I just said health and finances, right?
Uh-huh.
That's a gap we're gonna bridge between those two, you know, which once you done introducing how we're gonna get into it. So go ahead.
Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, in the building today, we have Tambra Raye Stevenson. She is National Geographic's Traveler of the Year, Nutrition Justice Advocate, Native Soul Kitchen founder, iamWANDA founder, DC NAACP Health Chair, and DC Food Policy member. We welcome you to Stuck in the Middle podcast.
And I'm happy to be stuck in the middle of my jollof and my suya.
Hey, Jollof and Suya brothers. Now, welcome to Stuck in the Middle podcast, yo.
Thank you for having me.
Nah, it's a pleasure. Before we
Yeah.
were going on, we were just, chopping about how many African nations you've been at, and it's just fascinating.
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, I'm not in the position where I'm going to choose between them. So it's nothing but all love. It's holiday season, so show love to one Africa. So again, it's about we have beauty and health in our foods, and every country represents kind of like if we had a world pageant of African food, who would be the contestant. We already know there's enough rivalry among who has the best jollof.
Right.
So we have
Yeah.
so many more foods to honor and celebrate, especially during the season as well.
Where did this, like this whole, we want to get to know you first.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like who is
Who am I?
Who is-
I am Wanda.
who are
Say
you?
my name, Wanda.
Like who
Like, get it right. I am one.
I
Get
am
it right.
Sorry, I grew up in a military town.
No, it's cool. I wasn't expecting it, but it's cool. But who is Wanda though? Like, for folks who are watching who might not know, and
Sure.
some people who know you who want to get to know you in a more personal level.
Yeah, so I say Wanda because when people meet me, that's what they end up calling me. But my biological name is Tambra. And of course, I have my Fulani name, Mulidi. But Wanda is basically kind of like a call anthem to all like food heroes around the world. I mean, you have Beyonce have her like, All the Girls Rule anthem, and I'm like, get information. Yes, we need to get all the Wanda women around the world acknowledge that they're making a difference in their communities, and that means using food as a way to heal them, creating sustainability, and reimagineering the imagery and narrative. So basically, if you were to Google African women, agriculture. Like, it looks like something that's so not Beyonce. So I'm like, who's the Beyonce of nutrition and ag? Like, if we're gonna really make this cool, like, what does that look like? So, you know, and hence why we have Little Wanda right here. You know, straight out of Niger, we wanted to definitely create a character that's born out of Africa that speaks to what we want to spark in the next generation of food heroes, which is my health. Comes from my heritage, and that all I need is already within my foodways, within my culture, and also within my divine feminine power.
Right.
So Wanda really was conceived with this idea of being able to create a whole new world of rethinking the role of women and girls in the food system. So our version of a Disney World. And so how do we create that experience through the book series that we've produced with Little Wanda Finds a Cure for Nana is the first one, where Nana has diabetes. So Little Wanda with her magic apron travels to Nigeria to find the cure using local foods, and having her hop to more countries and really use her as the global African food ambassador, sharing the health and beauty of these foods that have been, you know, had a lot of negativity wrapped around it. So we're like the publicists for African foods.
All this has just come from, you know, it didn't just fall off the tree like that. You know, something.
No
had to
mangoes,
happen.
just shake the mango tree. No, okay. No baba tree. No shake.
It had to
Okay.
stem
It
from
had to
somewhere.
stem somewhere. You
Most
know?
I mean, there was definitely a lot of like stepping stones to get to this point. First, I just grew up as that curious kid back home in Oklahoma, wanting to like be the problem solver of my family, who either had diabetes, kidney, heart, stroke, cancer, and to not say like this, like diabetes is not my heritage. So I, like most, you know, kids who are thinking about health, being a medical doctor is like the thing to do. So of course I was on that trajectory, but I had an opportunity to have a summer internship down at Baylor Med and Texas Children and learn nutrition is a viable field that is important to our health. And I never looked back. But what really sparked me, having grown up in an African diaspora household where we're eating fufu, we're getting the fresh goat from the farm, like how.
Okay, so you had African, you know, influence.
Yeah, my stepfather was
Okay.
from Ghana.
Okay.
So for me, it was like, you know, Oklahoma, you know, not to like be the tourist authority over here, but it's just like, if you're African, I think Oklahoma is a great place to be when you think about finding elements that you would want to see, you know, the oil, the ag, family traditions, strong on faith, and build community. And I grew up in that environment. So it was, yeah, and you have goat farms. Who would have thought? Like, there's
Right.
tons of goat farms in Oklahoma.
Oh, really?
Yeah, most definitely. Most
No wonder
definitely.
everybody's traveling down there random. It's like, yeah, I'm going to Oakland. Like, why?
Yeah, there's Cameroonians in Oklahoma. I'm
tons.
just saying,
Yeah, tons of them,
like,
yeah.
Tons.
and it's far cheaper than, you know, here. So, you know, it's a toss up. But at the end of the day, it was really like that curiosity within me, being in nutrition research in undergrad, wondering why is my heritage foods not a part of what we're talking about? Why is it the Mediterranean diet, the thing that we're talking about? And it really goes to who chooses to set what research agenda, research what foods, and if we don't have a body to advocate for those foods, how could it ever be, you know, institutionalized?
Right.
So that means, you know, having worked in the government, understanding how that system operates, and that means having, if you don't have a lobbyist for your cause will not get heard. And I recognize that there was no organization really dedicated to addressing these issues. I knew food alone, just creating some African food, you know, board or council was not going to be sufficient in my opinion, because it's like when people go tropical disease hunting, right? They go get the extract, the essence of a tropical plant, but you leave the rest of the plant behind. To me, that's how I see the relationship between women and food. You cannot go to a market and just only take the food, or go to the farm. There was a human dynamic behind you harvesting that food. And so you can create a market for African food, but if that leaves the people behind in that and other people co-opting the system, it defeats the whole purpose. And so that's how you have this dynamic of, you know, Black restaurants being opened up, themed restaurants, but it's like, not the Black community opening up these restaurants. So that's the same way that can happen to African food if you're not careful.
Man, you might have mentioned it, but what's the acronym for WANDA? What does it spell?
It's Women Advancing Nutrition, Dietetics, and Agriculture, and it was intent. Like I thought about every word. First, I thought about a word that my daughter could say. She was 4 at the time, so I was like, I went to school at Tufts for health communication, so I wanted to be able to communicate simple that a 5-year-old kid can comprehend. So that's the first thing. And that means create a visual mascot behind it. Hence why I created Little Wanda, just kind of like Smokey the Bear. We in forest fires. Well, we promote African foods. Yeah. So, and then the other part was like, we're not just trying to point around we need a stronger workforce. We got enough worker bees when it comes to ag. I mean, that's how slavery came about.
Yeah, for real.
So we need leadership. We need decision making. We need, be able to have access to capital and investment. And that means, the advancing piece, like we are helping to set the agenda on this issue. And then the farm to fork connection, that is not enough. We have enough silo organizations talking about farming, agriculture, but it's not making a strong linkage return in terms of nutrition sensitive agriculture. Like you can grow food, but the food may not necessarily be healthy. It may be devoid of micronutrients that you need to combat a variety of malnutrition issues. And so that's why it was so important to recognize the silo smashing between sectors: health, ag, food system, gender. They all combine together, because when we look at farming, it is composed of majority of women at the base of the pyramid who represent most of the poverty. So that's why we have a motto: if you want to empower women and girls, you nourish the world. You nourish the world by empowering women and girls, and that means investing in them, not just simply ag and nutrition itself.
It's being on the DC food, policy, and DC NAACP health share. How is that helping?
Right.
With you?
Yeah, it's been
or is it like a separate?
I mean, they obviously are separate volunteer leadership positions that I'm in, but yes, I do look at how can, agenda setting in both entities help further the cause. I definitely know that when I was brought in and had a read testimony in front of council to be approved to be on the council, DC City Council approving that. I remember council member Mary Che making the point that she liked the part about women in the food system, because we knew that was something that had not been fully addressed. I worked in women's policy for the mayor as well at one point. So understanding like gender auditing, analysis, that if we actually don't know the baseline of how more than 50% of DC residents are women, but lack the opportunities when it comes to proper childcare so they can get in the workforce, get the education opportunities that they desire, then how would you know that you succeeded? So that's what we wanted to look at. And those are the kind of skill sets that I'm bringing to Wanda and all the other roles of how are we making sure that there's opportunity for everyone. And even just the power of words and representation, how much that matters. It's kind of like we knew that even having President Obama in office, like the visuals of what it does in planting the seed for the next generation to aspire to want to be in that role. Yes, we want you to do a good job in your role, for sure. We don't need you to be the face of corruption. And so it's a combination of both representation and having an agenda and pushing it forward. So to me, that means advocating for a stronger voice in nutrition. I'm the only one with a nutrition background on the Food Policy Council. Yeah. And most folks, my colleagues, are either have a business or nonprofit hunger background, and so together collectively we
it's a balance.
Make a nice balance, most definitely. And for NAACP, even though their health has been a priority at the national level, food has not always been talked about in a way as making a strong linkage to health. And so that's why over the summer I was honored with the William Montague Cobb Health Advocacy Award on my work around food and nutrition justice, because it's not enough just to have healthy sidewalks, to walk to a grocery store if you don't have the healthy food access. And to me, most important, culturally available foods, not just any foods. If you didn't grow up with, white potato starch kinds of foods, but maybe your starch foods were yam or cassava, but it's not accessible to you, then that's a problem. So to me, that's the level of thinking that doesn't happen when you don't have the diversity and inclusion within the food system that ends up reflecting the kind of food access that people have as well. So we stand up for the voiceless veggies, everything from, the agusi to the baobab to the moringas. Those are kinds of foods that are not talked about in my world of nutrition in the West, that needs to be talked about as we look at minority being the majority, African immigrants fastly growing in the States, and them needing to have access to their foods, no different than Alaskan Inuit, Native or Latino foods being available. And that means starting to build a new infrastructure that leads to a strong linkage to the continent. So all of this boils down to building better food economy that creates job opportunities, and to say, yes, you can still be the doctor, the lawyer, the engineer, but how can you take these skill sets now, apply it to build a better food infrastructure that links the diaspora to the Africa together? And that means also adding publicity and being able to market foods in a way that is palatable, accessible, and achievable to kids like little Wanda as well. And that means, creating things from the cartoons to the puppets, getting engaged, developing curriculum that starts to visualize these foods, giving access into the classroom with cultural appropriate foods. That's part of what we're doing here, and rethinking even down to African restaurants. Why don't we have kids menus? Why are we not making things that aspire the next generation to see that they have a place in this? Because when we think about food is that one nostalgic thing when you reflect on your childhood. Is like, oh
Yeah.
man, that zobo, my mind. Oh, I would love some more zobo. That's what happens. But if you don't make it easily accessible, where it's only in the home, but it's not available outside of the home, I mean, that's a lost economic opportunity.
Is that what the Pan-African cuisine is that you've created? When you think about the African community,
Sure.
both here in the diaspora,
Right.
and back home, we think about things that bind us together, like even the jollof rice,
Yeah.
and things that divide us, fufu being made different.
Exactly. And so for me, food is more than just, a mechanical thing that I do to my body in order to move forward in life. It also is a reflection about what is my values, what is my beliefs, what is, what do I want to aspire. I want unity in my community, and so food becomes a tool to reflect how do I create that. And I would definitely say attending the African Union Summit in 2014 made a huge impact of thinking about how in my sector of food play a role in achieving this AU agenda for 2063 of Pan-African unity. If we can have a Pan-Asian restaurant, why can there not be one that intentionally creates this unity? And being the diaspora, we have a unique opportunity because we're not binded by tribes and ethnic. You can still, like, I was hitting up the Edo State event yesterday, but at the same time, because we're so more accessible to one another, you can hit up a hibiscus spot. You can just do so many things here easily that you can't find an Ethiopian spot in Lagos. Like, I bet, in Cameroon, really, no, exactly. And this is my point. So when I started to think, when I was traveling in different countries, man, I'm in Ethiopia. Nobody got plantains. It never dawned because, again, we paint this very monolithic view about Africa. So you would think if Africa is one, well, why can I not get injera in Abuja or somewhere?
Even the egusi you mentioned,
Exactly.
most people say egusi, what is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Or in jollof, that's a regional thing. So that's when it really started dawning on me is not only women can forge a way to create the peace and healing that we need, food is a great visual, tactical tool to be able to instill that message as well. And so because I'm a visual, tactical person, I love art and creativity, food becomes like my palette that I choose to use and paint a new world, a canvas that displays the world that little Wanda sees, which is that all I need is already within, and that what I see is how all of us collectively can heal our communities through our local foods. And if we understand and appreciate that, it helps not to have a message co-opted saying that the West is the best in the rest of us, which to me is like the message right now that's really being pumped. And that's cultural engineering our societies, and it sets us up in a situation where you're literally will have more children design more Western products and less of indigenous, native, traditional products, and therefore that leaves a gap of economic opportunity as well.
That just reminded me of a video I watched the other day, and it was on Facebook, and this guy actually distinguished between a white doll and a black doll.
Exactly.
Said, like, we've been so brainwashed that when you have a daughter, you take her to the store, she gonna look at the black doll as something negative and pick the white one. Meanwhile, they're both the same thing. So why can't we promote the black one as much as we promote the white one? It was just something that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
And speaking of dolls, so we're actually trying to work on a Little Wanda doll. We first started off with the puppet as a way to engage kids in communities, clinics, classrooms with Little Wanda. We were just with Miss Africa USA a couple of weeks ago, going to Ward 8 schools and giving out gifts, reading Little Where's Wanda book, and really engaging kids around embracing their African heritage, or for those who are not, being able to celebrate and appreciate it as well. But anyways, we're working on a doll. And in the process of doing that, I got, let's say, the sketch and a prototype, and I shot back an email like, dude, for real? Like, I had to go there because there was levels to this. I sent reference articles about the issues that you pointed about, colorism.
Right.
Like, we are not today. We are not about to pass off this, I don't know, this beige looking doll as a black doll. It's not happening. Like, my audience will reject me and all that we're doing. So my goal is for 2018 to have a campaign where we're pushing a new doll product, getting Where's Wanda out there in a way that kids can relate to, where it's not just any kind of doll, that she actually will be instilling knowledge. It will be a talking doll, and being able to, introduce new foods, new languages to kids in a way that really speaks to the brand of Where's Wanda.
Where is the series at now in the States?
Yeah, so we just started we launched, we crowdfunded the first book, published it this year
Is it this,
in DC.
this
This is the first book. And then, so we've just been getting it through bookstores, festivals, exposure. Forbes covered us, Voice of America covered us. And now working on the second book, which will be on Ethiopia. So celebrating the health and beauty of Ethiopian foods, and having that book available in English and Amharic, and recognizing that in the diaspora here in DC, Ethiopian diaspora is like the largest outside of Ethiopia.
Right.
So it was important that we capture what's here on the ground, and understand, like, when we go to Ethiopia, we'll put on workshops and be able to be a part of really, doing outreach and highlighting, a Wanda woman in that community, and showing how the local foods can help heal mama, So we tackle a range of issues from heart disease, hypertension, diabetes. Yeah, we're going to go after the little cube too.
Yeah.
Not saying names, but you know what I mean. So, it's a great example.
I don't know if I do, but I'm sure I'll catch you.
Is that one cube that is known for every woman, that your food is not good enough if you don't have this and to me, if we really want to boil down the psychological trauma you put on a woman, what do you mean that I'm not good enough, that I have to have this outside thing? I mean, this is the deeper message that we're talking about, how you fuel capitalism, that you're saying my indigenous natural spices here in Africa is not good enough. Like, think about it. That's pretty profound. And someone buying into it because they make it, I won't even say sexy, but it's like mama in the kitchen is just like, ma, and then they get the
power
kids
of the spice.
and then they get the kids a part of, mama, this food just is and then, just pulling on the heartstrings. I mean, that's the power of advertising, and we're going to use it for good.
How?
Through, again, we're creating not only the book series, but also animated series as well. So really being able to use multimedia edutainment as a way to also get the message
Yeah.
out. And so that means, how can we amplify, using social media, traditional media, to also share the voice, the experience, the journey. How can we develop, games around Where's Wanda, but really understanding that these interactive experiences. This year we had a Little Wanda Garden Day party. So basically taking a farm and transforming it with Black Girl Magic, and having everything from DJs to singers to women vendors selling plant-based foods as
Which
well.
was my next question. You finish your thought.
Yeah.
That's a great suggestion.
And being able to have the books available and highlight, Black Girl Magic on stage, having kids, if you have a talent, share it. And just naturally they did. And then we incorporated a Mommy and Me healthy cooking competition. So again, part of food is about creating family bonds too, and memorable meal moments. So girls were so excited to be able to compete, making a healthy salad for Nana with her mom. And it was just one of those things, it was a spitball on the wall and it stuck. I was like, yes.
Nice. Now we've had previous guests on the podcast, talk to us about plant-based nutrition and plant-based diets and things like that. How help us in this? Help me.
Well, first of all, the African Heritage Diet is one of the healthiest diets in the world. There's a lot of research to back it up. There was a study that looked at cancer risk, and they compared a 2-week trial, African Americans on a Zulu-based diet, and then you had Zulus on a more Western diet. I can't even say African American diet. And that means everything from burgers, pizza, versus the pap, the maize based kind of dishes. And so the key difference between the diets is basically the Zulu diet was going to be higher in fiber, less in protein. What compared to the American diet was going to be lower in fiber, and higher in animal protein. And what that boils down to is increasing risk factor for cancer on the Western diet. And why that is important is because when we think about how do you save the GDP, the gross domestic product, health is a big component for that here. That means investing in better nutrition, and that means also recognizing that a person's health or heritage is important for their health. So plant-based diets, think about it, it's basically the poor man's diet, okay? So everything you think about, what people are now escaping in the rural, once they have a more economic means, and go into urban environments, they want to increase meat intake. It's a status symbol, just like going to a Western restaurant is a status symbol, the KFCs and other food chains of the world. So it really is about plant-based, everything from the kuka, the zobo, the moringa, the agusis. There are the injeras with the gomenwat, those are part of a plant-based diet when you think about it. And so that's what we're talking about, the bean dishes, the rice dishes. And so all we need is already there. And that's the whole point that we drill down to, that yes, in our current state of affairs, we have, access to meat. It doesn't mean we need to eat more of it. It's not necessarily great for the environment. So even if we were to reduce consumption, all you do, you just need enough to fill the palm of your hand if you're going to eat it. So be like a flexitarian versus like a straight carnivore.
I like that word.
And so
flexitarian.
Yeah, I'm flexing on them.
I like that one. Flexitarian.
Yeah, and it's gonna, and if you think about it, it boils down to economics. In terms of most meats tend to cost more money unless they're subsidized from the government for whatever reason. But so plants can be cheaper. So, and especially if you if you're hitting up the mainstream stores, you need to hit up the ethnic spots. You need to hit up the Latin, the Asian, African restaurants. Food markets, and the farms. Again, if you're growing your own food, also is another way. So we have West African vegetables growing in the DMV. I'm trying to get my hands on some seeds so we can again share that to Little Wanda's. How do you grow your ethnic foods? It's a really important conversation to be had. Because otherwise, if you're not exposed to how is it possible, you won't know what the future can hold. And if we plant that seed in her, imagine the possibilities of what can happen, of saying I remember that program I was in elementary, and now I can say that I I became a big Wanda, you know, and that's what we want to do is just, again, opening up people's minds and seeing the possibilities of what they can do and versus the limitations they put on their minds.
There's this thought that's contradicting to that, and
Sure.
there's YouTube channels and other avenues that kids use to learn, you know, makeup, you know, stuff about hair and all whatnot. I feel like that. I mean, that's good per se. It has its own, you know, greatness to it, but I feel like that takes away from, you know, Little Wanda, like teaching kids how to grow stuff. Because if I'm telling a kid right now, okay, agriculture is good, you know, learn to plant stuff and all whatnot, and there's this other person in the corner here teaching them how to apply makeup, or it's gonna make you look good and all this other stuff, I feel like this side wins more than this side.
I mean, that's just the battle of David and Goliath. And, you know, you can get with this or you can get with that, but Little Wanda is where it's at. And it boils down to the idea. I love getting behind underdogs. And I see Little Wanda as that underdog that in the world that she has to walk through, it's challenging. And that's why we need the village to support the Little Wandas of the world. And if we see ourselves in that rightful place traditionally that we've always been in, that social capital, that's the critical part. So it doesn't matter what happens in the secular world. It matters about how you choose to have the intention and belief that no matter what tests are in front of me, I'm so convicted to my cause that I'm busting through like Karate Kid. Hi-ya! And that's the way you have to see it. You know, it's like, how do you take a funnelist mindset and apply it to something that actually is good in the world? You know, and who defines good?
I mean,
right?
it's always gonna be, you know,
Like,
Right.
Yeah,
But
things like
that
that.
is, I mean, you know, it is the Lord saying. So part of understanding, like, even like, you know, spiritual figures like Jesus, Muhammad, whoever you want to call on your ultimate creator, all these, you know, parables and proverbs and stories and even just real biographies in contemporary life are to show and spotlight that the journey is never easy.
Right.
You're always going to have obstacles. And that's what we, you know, try to convey through Little Wanda, even though, you know, she has this challenge of finding this cure, that there are people along the way from her uncles to Big Wanda who will help her. And that's what we want to convey, that she can't do this alone. She needs all of us together to help. And the more we start embedding those kind of messages, that it's not just about food, it's not just about a little girl, it's about building community, coming together for a proper, you know, pathway of fulfilling our purpose. And our purpose is to heal and sustain us, and unity is the only way to get to that aim. Then that's the seed that we've planted.
I want to talk to you about, you know, like as far as like the impact that you've seen, call it success stories.
Sure.
You know, so like talk to us about it.
Yeah, I mean, the awesome thing why we intentionally don't currently have like our, you know, product like on Amazon right now is that we wanted to, in this first year, really be intentional, having the product available in Black bookstores, going out straight to the community, engage, being able to ask, why do you like this product? Why do you get behind Little Wanda? And a range of testimonies start from the African diaspora mom who says, I love the fact that this girl looks like my daughter and it's something that's not a princess. And I was a tomboy, so I completely get what she's talking about. Like, where's the stories of the little Black girl like hiking through the woods and just being this adventurer? So I thought about, Tintin, and why can't we have a little Black girl like Tintin? And instead of a dog, she has her foodie friends that help save the community. And then the other testimonies are like those moms who have boys and wanted to show that there's like this balance of like gender power, gender equity, that teaching their boys to be sensitized that girls can have a dynamic place in this world, and it's not just traditional roles that we've seen throughout the last century. And also for those who are of not African descent, I've had, you know, Caucasian moms who buy because they said, I want to expose my kid to diverse cultures. And so Little Wanda helps to do that in a fun, creative way and learn something new. Or you have that person who, you know, worked abroad in Peace Corps or some international NGO. And so they love the fact like, oh, wow, like I studied there, or I've tasted that food, like, and you had grown women who just bought the book for themselves because they're like, I didn't have a little Wanda in my life, but gosh darn it, I got one now. So
Nah.
it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Like, you being a world traveler, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, engaging in food stuff. One might immediately, you know what I'm saying, like, coming across your platform thing, and like people like, you know, Anthony Bourdain or
Yeah.
George Zimmerman, or like people like that. How you have a, you know, a unique style as far as like how you approach your travels in the continent of Africa. How, you know, describe that to us.
Well, some of them, I mean, one of my favorite stories for me was like going to South Africa. Basically, I was on the hunt for the baobab tree. And in that, I arrived in Polokwane. I actually had bought the wrong plane ticket to go to another city. Never got that money back. Thanks, South African Airways. And so once I got there, no one was available to take me there. Like, you need to go to Medina. That's 2 hours away. We didn't have no one to take you there. And so I kept calling someone to like get me to find this tree. Ultimately, when you're on intention and the work, I got a call the day before I was to leave, and a guy, tour agency, dropped everything, came, black guy who was the owner of his company, came, got me, toured everything, and I was able to climb the baobab tree. That was my goal. Like,
The baobab tree.
I have documentation. I got receipts. Okay. So, and it was like it was like a America's Top Model pose. It was like, yes, I was in the dress, everything, head wrap, striking a pose. And it was awesome because to me, it's a photo that captures, like, at the end of the day, like, the end of a test. Like, I was so convicted to find this tree, kind of like that sacred tree in the Avatar movie. And it was just like, I'm going to find this tree of life. I talk about it. I've researched it, and gosh darn it, I'm going to find it. So I've got the oil, the powder. It's like keep making smoothies of the baobab powder, like everything. And it's so awesome because, again, these are items that are now becoming superfoods, promoted by, you know, these social enterprise entities, and understanding that, again, these are foods that are available everywhere. When we think about the 36 countries that house baobab trees on the continent, and it's like, who else is making added value products out of them that isn't just something that we have for the community that can be available for the world. And so there's a balance, because you don't want to turn it to the case study of quinoa, what happened of cashing people out of their own local foods. And so that was a concern for Ethiopia when it came to teff and making injera. So I think for me, I always think about going hunting for indigenous foods and learning about the context of the food. It's not just about how to prepare the food, but what's the cultural, historical, spiritual, ritual dynamic around the food. So I look through a very holistic lens when I think about it, and how to now package that message in a way that's accessible to little Wanda.
Right.
And being able to introduce these characters. We need food models. When we think about the field of nutrition, we come up with these literal play food models to talk to diabetics or whatever people about food, but we have none for ethnic foods. Those are things that we want to change and be able to express, and that's what Little Wanda promotes. Not foods that have been hauled in to the continent, but those that are indigenous. And that message is so vitally important, because when you're looking at the ethnobotany of these foods, there's a lot of debate. Is the origin, for instance, let's take moringa. There's several species. One that's in Asia, one is in East Africa. So the question is, which one is more nutritious? So there's research that goes behind of understanding those different strains. The average person is not thinking these things. They're just like, I just want some moringa.
Right.
But same issue with palm oil. Like, is the palm oil from Southeast Asia versus that coming from West Africa? Which one is more sustainable, better for the planet? And so palm oil ends up getting a bad rap because most of the palm oil is coming out of Asia. And so the ideology of the food matters. And these are things that I, as a geeked out nerd, like on food, love like diving into.
Yeah.
Just haven't been like in research labs, but I recognize that in research labs, like everything can just be on the shelf and never go anywhere. So it's so important that I be able to make this information accessible. So that's why I value, my graduate training in health communication about how do I make this stuff practical tools, language that the average little Wanda can understand. And if little Wanda can understand, Mama Wanda gonna understand too, and Nana.
Definitely, man. You're so versed in all this stuff, and to promote a kid to do good in school, right? You reward them by giving them a gift or something like that.
Oh, don't get me started on that. I mean, that was another thing, right? Like, okay, so there's like levels to this how I end up creating Wanda. The other one was like my 4-year-old having a cavity, and it was just like going to the teacher and saying like, what in the world is popping off, because I know she didn't get it from me, and realizing that junk food as rewards is a real thing. So that was the other components of this. How do we ensure that we reward our children with good behavior, and it's not always coming in the form of junk food, cookies, chips, fake juice, all this stuff. So when I didn't receive a positive like reaction by her just saying like, you can give your kid oranges or whatever, but I'm doing whatever I want in my classroom, I was like, luckily I'm educated, because this is when you like kirk off, you have to reel it back, like what did you say to me, like you don't care about these other kids. See, this is what the problem is. Then I break it down like, what is your kid eating in their school? And they're like, they're not eating this. Like, oh my God, this is what we're talking about. So anyways, that really chapped my hide, and it really motivated, it really kickstarted this idea that I couldn't just have Wanda women. I got to inspire the little girls, because these people don't care about these kids. So that was the other part to it. And a year later, I came back to that parent-teacher conference voila with this Wanda book. It's like,
take that.
And then telling me her husband died because of his bad life. So like, girl, I've been trying to tell you. More people dying from heart disease than homicide. CDC ranks number 1. Heart disease.
That's facts.
Homicide is number 8. That's real facts. But understanding in HealthCom, in our world, acute direct action gets more impact. It's nothing sexy to say like, yeah, heart disease, diabetes. No, that's not going to capture the news. But that's facts that NCDs, diabetes, heart disease are the new AIDS, the new TB, the malaria of Africa. And that is what being trained in public health, look at. How do we monitor and predict what is about to pop off, and how do we prevent and roll it back? And that's why it's so important for us now that the African American experience is the canary in the mine for Africa. That if we're not talking about the role that fast food, Western food is going to play, the sodas, the soft minerals, whatever you want to call it, and how do you intervene, and you compound that with a poor healthcare infrastructure that's only been grappling infectious diseases and not diseases like chronic diseases or what we call NCDs, that's going to be very problem. It's going to be a burden on the system that's already strapped and not really prepared. And that means a new, healthy, diverse workforce that is understanding that we really need to ramp up capacity and training and creating health professionals who can tackle things like diabetes. And how do we use our traditional foods in that healing process? So going to Abuja, seeing in the hospitals dietitians using everything from tamarind and ginger and all these different spices. We don't even do that here. So it's so powerful what our African foods can be our medicine, and how do we institutionalize, document that in a way that's accessible at all different levels, from healthcare industry to consumers, and having the face of Little Wanda and Wanda women advance that cause. That's what we're all about.
You could take a horse to the river all you want, but you can never force it to drink water.
But we got Zobo.
Yo, I want to ask you about, why, you've answered this question pretty much already, but why should a typical American family, swap their American diet for
A plant
traditional African diet?
Yeah.
Well, that's real easy. If it's failed you, why would you continue to create more insanity in your life? So it's already been documented that the standard American diet, the SAD diet, is pretty much rippled with a lot of problematic impacts. When we think about what's contributing to chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease and renal disease. And so it's so important that other people, if you're already looking towards a Mediterranean diet, which is now being promoted through medical schools as culinary medicine, why are we also not training people in other forms of food as medicine as well? And that's real problematic, because it's like taking a brushstroke and saying that we have one set of food standards that can apply to heal everybody. That's bullcrap. We don't even have one language around the world. We don't have one religion around the world. I'm sure some people would love to change that, but the point is that there is diversity there. The biodiversity of our foods, the biodiversity of life, and language and culture makes that enrichment. Who wants a homogenous living environment? And that means our foods as well. But if we don't recognize, like, that's how foods get mainstream, co-opted. We don't have, I mean, literally we have foods being extinct day after day because of various species like just not being cultivated. So just like how we have banks of seeds around the world, like the same thing needs to happen when it comes to like indigenous African foods as well. Like, it's a whole infrastructure that really has to be like fully supported and developed, because before you know it, if we're saying Africa is the breadbasket to the world, what does that really mean? Is it just mean more like growing more soybean, corn and wheat? Like, what's going to displace the local foods? Do we not care because no one's willing to like fight for that cause? So that's why she is like the David Goliath battle about being able to fight for the underdog, and the underdog is African food. And if we're going to grow, as the World Economic Forum is projecting, double-digit growth for Africa and building middle-income countries, like the food goes along with the Afro beats. I got to have my eats too, and the fashion goes along with it too. It comes together. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that's the other part to this. Like when India, along with Latin America, China had been ramping up their economies, you saw a proliferation now ready to eat Indian meals, Asian meals. I mean, there was no coincidence, because it's feeding into a market that are looking to have their local foods available. So if we're not demanding as consumers, because that's how they love saying in market, like, well, we just answer what the consumers want. So if all the consumers, but at the same time, you can push and pull markets. So we understand that strategy too. So if the consumers are not demanding jollof or goosey and zobo and everything else, then why would we prepare these items? So every time someone pays is a customer validation and supports this idea that we want more of this, and that means we need to create more of this. And that just helps build up a whole new, industry within an industry. I go to these food shows and it looks like, Disney World, and Italy is like a food mafia. They just huge, and that reflects how much food economy they're bringing in. Those are real food sale dollars. You look at Africa, look like Gambia up in that piece. So this is part of the problem. Like, how in the world can we compete when we got a government-backed food hub for Africa, and it alone looks like Gambia? This is a real problem. And so that means we need to be able to think about, how do we scale this up? Now that we see proof that the economy is growing, we need to see all the industries that play into that.
You've been recognized as, the National Geographic Traveler. Mm-hmm. How did that fuel your passion for,
because I really wasn't hitting Africa in a real dynamic way. But what it ended up doing, I've done other travels around the world, but I think what I was told, my ordinary story doing extraordinary things, is what really, connected. People sometimes travel with no purpose. They travel for work. And for me, out of my own dime, I just had this passion of really like wanting to trace my heritage through food. And that wasn't a typical story. I mean, in my world, like, I know people who love what we do, which is food root work is what I call it. But that was it. Like, you would be amazed how much we undervalue our story. And I was just having this conversation with my mom just this week about, who's documenting our Oklahoma food history, our Black Oklahoma food history. Like, how do we not choose to celebrate our stories? If we're looking at awe of other people's stories, how many more stories are out there that we could be in awe of. And that's why this platform today is important as well, because it's being able to starting documenting stories, reshifting the narrative. And food to me was a pathway that was captured by Nat Geo around understanding that food is this convener and curator of experiences and traditions and culture that has to be celebrated in a way, and we need to see more of that. And Africa in particular needs to see more of that because of the historical marginalization of our food and our people and our traditions. And so the more platforms that we have to celebrate it, uplift it, recognize it, that's what we're all about. So we're saying, Wanda, we're about educate, advocate, innovate, and celebrate Black Girl Magic from farm to fork, unapologetically.
When you're not traveling or educating yourself on food, what do you do?
I'm on platforms like this, getting the word out. I'm keep advocating, educating, all that. So, but also like I love like supporting our local diaspora community. I also serve on the board for NIDO DC, which is Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, which roll out to the embassy this weekend, Friday at 4. The ambassador will be out, and it's about making sure that again. It's really stuck in the middle. It's like living in these two worlds of being able to say that, yes, this is what we need to have happen on the continent, but also how does the diaspora play a key role in pushing, pulling markets and creating consumer demand, and recognizing that we have power in helping to cultivate. We know the world now recognizes how much remittance is going to Africa, and so that means if we have that power with the money, there's so much power in unifying on a range of other issues, and that means setting a domestic policy agenda that invests in African food, that USDA, NIH needs to get behind, and that means having a body of people who are saying this is what we need to do. Right now, we're not organized in a real fashion, but I hope with Wanda helping to be a part of the work that so many other unsung heroes and sheroes are doing, that we can start pushing forward. But yeah, I like hitting up festivals. I like going to pop-up shots. I love getting my Ankara fashion on. Little Wanda always trying to get sweat. Most definitely,
I dig it.
So it really is about, it all flows together. So that means, I love, like, Sakardi was in town a couple weeks ago. I had to hit that up and support African singers, entertainers. I mean, it really is a full holistic spectrum when we're talking about this, because the music goes with the food, it goes with the fashion. Yeah. So I'm trying to be in all those spaces where little Wanda needs to be represented and making sure that people know her.
What's success for you in all this?
Most definitely. The success is like when they say my name. I am Wanda. And most importantly, success looks like when I have emails from whether it's an educator, a chef, or a nutritionist who are saying, I'm using Where's Wanda into my classroom, in my community. My daughter loves the materials. My son just loves her journey that she's on. And also success looks like, how do we empower 1 million women and girls by 2030 who are leading in the food system? And so that means if we're sparking it through the book series, or also on the women's side, we have our Sisterhood Supper series that we do, convening local women who are in the food system to create a culture of conversations of culture and cuisine, as well as putting on a farm retreat around Sisterhood of the Soul. Success looks like creating more unity. And that means ultimately we can look at it through numbers, but we also can look at it through the mindset. So that means woke foods for woke people.
Man. Like it's deep, and so you're everything is accessible.
I'm breaking it down.
Yo, her energy is, I dig it.
Yeah.
How can people want to get involved, reach you? You have everything laid out on your website. Let people know where they can see everything.
They can definitely hit us up on social media. We're on website is iamWANDAorg, and also Facebook, fb.com/iamWANDAorg, and same on Twitter. IG is iamWANDAorg, but with a underline underneath. And then also in terms of opportunities, we are definitely looking to have more volunteers to come on board. We want to help beef up the programming that we do. We look to have our Wanda Awards as an annual thing that we do, which is to, again, celebrate Black Girl Magic. And that means honoring those who are the hidden figures in the food system, the trailblazers, the media makers, the policy makers who are pushing an agenda on food ways of the diaspora. And so, and the garden party, curriculum development, we have so much that we can and need to do. And that means having a dedicated group of people, as the Margaret Mead quotes say, how we can all come together to change the world. In this case, it's Wanda's world.
Man. Go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, you know, for all the kids out there, not just kids, you know, women, men, you know, we all try to be healthy, you know, in every way, shape, or form. What advice do you have, especially too for ladies who, you know, want to take the same path that you're in right now? Because there's a lot of women out here who try to create, you know, avenues where people could learn about health, you know, be healthy. So what advice do you have for them?
Well, the first for me, it's a mindset about, there's a culture of convenience that the Western world promotes, and that's critical because that also influences with people thinking, well, I'm gonna get my slim and sexy on in 2 weeks. And when you have a mindset where what took almost a decade of work of unhealthiness to accumulate, now you want to come up with a solution in 2 weeks, let's be realistic. So it's about coming up with a lifestyle change and being gentle with yourself and making sure that when it comes to you know, what you do, you first listen to your body and say, am I having aches and pains when I'm eating this? Do I ignore it? Do I actually go get help? Look at the clues. Don't be passive aggressive about it. Having a buddy system, a support system, people that you can talk to, and they not just like scuff it off, but they actually say like, nah, girl, you need to get that checked out. You want to have a very supportive environment. And then also just assessing like, you know, I mean, I know people love getting the club on and drinking. So how can I reduce my alcohol intake? We don't really talk about when it comes to nutrition, but that's important. And then also, how can I reduce my soda intake? You know, that's also important. Like, can you go a day without drinking a soda? Can you step it up? Can I go a week without drinking soda? I mean, it's not a life, you know, it's not like a yeoman's amount of work to do. You can literally start with one thing and say, how much sugar can I reduce? Like added sugar. And if you can do well on that goal, how you up the ante on that goal. So every 3 months, like a quarter, like looking at performance track record, like every 3 months, I'm adding something new. Can you say, I'm going to try one new food product? Can you say, if I've been hitting up all the fast food chains, can I go and make one family dish where I make everybody sit at the table on a Sunday? I mean, these are small little changes. And you know, for those ends of faith, I'm like, you know, it's like making your own 10 kitchen commandments. Like, what are the commandments that you want to ascribe to your life, and then that help govern your home and the way in which you see your world is going to be vitally important. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money to do that.
Where can people get the book?
The book is at iamWANDAorg. And then they can also, in D.C., hit up Nubian Human and Mahogany Bookstore in Anacostia and Ward 8, Washington, D.C.
Yo, she got everything like right here, like your fingertips. I dig it, yo. And I appreciate you for coming to Stuck in the Middle podcast.
Yeah.
Really, really informative. It's been great.
You're
I don't know.
to my yam.
I'm not.
I don't mind being stuck in the middle of that.
I'm not soya no
It's
more.
not so, you know.
I like
No, you can be that too. I'm just saying they gotta diversify.
I like it. I like it. Nah, I like it. Man,
man.
come back sometime down the future
Yeah.
and update us on everything that you got going.
And next time I'll make sure I bring a proper meal. I need to treat you with some Zobo, like the things that Little Wanda talks about. Like
If you got
I'm
events,
sorry.
you got these meals, let us know. Email. I will turn up, pull up, and
Turn up, turn out.
yes, all that.
Show up and show out.
Nah, brother, I don't know where the hour went, man. But you know, like I said, come back and we can chop it up some more.
Most
It's been
definitely.
great.
Yeah, it's been great. It's
Yes,
definitely
sir.
great.
Thank you. So
Nah.
just email me at hello@iamWANDA.org if you have any questions, want to support end of the year donations. We are 501c3, so charitable write-offs is in play. You got 1 week to do that, and then also just have a blessed happy, prosperous new year.
Yeah, you already know. Stay safe.
Yes.
We want to see you next year.
Most
Yeah.
definitely.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
Hey, kid, let them know how they can reach us
Yeah,
and all that
man.
good stuff,
As
brother.
always, y'all been watching and listening to Stuck in the Middle podcast. This is our final guest segment for the year.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Tune in next year.
Yes, sir.
Tune in.
Next year.
Damn,
It's
I'm already,
crazy.
dude, I'm already waiting for 2018, man, because I got crazy goals I got to accomplish. But now, tune in next week. We're going to be sitting round table with our team, the people, who make this episode, Stuck in the Middle possible.
Yeah.
You know
Deuce, Mane, Joyce, everybody.
Yeah,
man.
everybody gonna be here. Don't forget to review our show on all social platforms. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Like our Facebook page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like we said, next week we're gonna be sitting around table with our awesome team. Email us at sitmpodcast237@gmail.com for questions, comments, referrals. Until next time,
Stuck in the Middle podcast.
we out.
And we out.
Peace.